All right, we're gonna move right into our next content. I've got to get back to my my gamer jive friends here. I've been in the space running around as a rainbow bufficorn. If you want to come talk to me, but we've got Rex with DeFi Safety.
How you doing?
I'm good, Rex. I like your turquoise shirt there.
Thank you.
That means that you staked and attended ETHDenver in 2019.
2019, and I have the 2018 one, but that looks like a jammies. You only had very large at the time.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, go to bufficorn.com and get the new gear.
All right, I'll do that for sure.
All right, see you. Good luck.
All right, thank you much. So good morning, and I'm Rex Hygate from DeFi Safety. We're going to talk about mostly transparency and a little bit on process quality. So transparency is what you show publicly to allow strangers to trust your code. And the reason why you're transparent is to bring trust, which drives users and drives more TVL into your protocol. I mean, a lot of what I say is applicable to any DeFi, any Ethereum app, but our focus is on DeFi. And just an example, imagine a CeFi investment firm that wants to get into DeFi. They love the rewards. So the boss goes to one of his people and says, prove to me that our investors' money will be safe. He reads up, he gets and hires a coder, not an auditor, just a coder. And he says, prove to me that the investment is safe and show me how it's going to work. Transparency is the information that that developer will use in order to prove that. And we should consistently be transparent as an industry. And this is something that DeFi Safety is really trying to promote, because when the talking heads start talking about DeFi in the near future, they're going to pounce on the weakest links. You only have to look at the silly double spend story that was going on about Bitcoin to have an idea of how this works. And then even once DeFi is a big part of the establishment finance ecosystem, transparency will remain as a way to prove the way the transactions work. If you have a system that runs on transparency, it's impossible to have a Panama Papers event. So what we are, at this point, I will flip over to our actual website. So our website comes up we've got about 60 odd reviews that we've done. We've done pretty much all of the DeFi Pulse list, except for the layer 2s, which will be our next step. And if you go to one of our, click on one of ours, you'll see we break down the review on code and team, documentation, testing, and audits. And I'll be talking about those parts. And everything's nice and color-coded, so that the idea is you don't have to dig just to get an idea of how safe through our process a protocol is. But if you click again, you can get the actual detailed report, which has, here you can see it. We have a fixed process. We go through, we get reviews. We have screen captures. We have sections of text. We do slocks and test counts and such. So it's a very detailed process that we have. And because we follow a very strict process, the scores can be compared one to another. So the number one thing that you want to show to the world for a transparent protocol is your smart contract addresses. So this is a list of all of the addresses that you're executing with. Publishing your smart contract addresses is absolutely number one for transparency. Or to flip it around, failing to publish implies that you're hiding something. If you're going into a protocol and you're going to hit the commit, but you can't see the code that you're going into, it makes you feel nervous, and that's the last thing you want. The actual addresses can be in a website page, they can be in a Git book, they can be in a repo, though please not in a JSON file, which we have found. So here you can see the Yearn v2 page. It's in their Git book, and they go through and they clearly enunciate where all of the all of the different pools, what the addresses are, how it's all together. There's details there because, well, Yearn's a big contract, but the details give people confidence. And even if a protocol doesn't hire a developer, simply putting all of this information out there is 24/7, 365, daring them to come in and check. And that's exactly the type of confidence you want to give to people that will bring them into DeFi and bring them into investing. So if you go back to the example, the smart contract developer, this gives them exactly the contracts that they have to do. And then you give them documentation. Documentation is vital for transparency. If you think of the example, it's vital so that the developer knows how the code is supposed to work. Now, this is more than just a white paper, which describes the math and the logic and the way you give rewards. This is documentation at the software function level. It also has a lot of other good advantages. It tells people that you're planning to stay for the long term. It says that you're ready for personnel changes. I can't lose my lead developer and suddenly not be able to improve on my thing. And it says you made an effort. Even in hiring, when you're competing to try and get a good Solidity developer for your protocol, having good documentation gives them a very strong feeling about confidence that that your protocol is going to be a good place to do it. Now, if you look at the gold star for documentation is Synthetic. These guys knocked it out of the park. They have a system overview, which, they go through the architecture, and then they've got descriptions with the code there, all the variables, all the constructors, the details for the external functions, internal functions. It's just fantastic. These guys put a lot of effort into this. Mint is another good example. They're using here a self-built documentation using that spec. They've got code snippets in here, which is just wonderful because it allows what is called traceability. I'm an aerospace guy. That's how, and aerospace takes software quality extremely seriously. And ETHDenver 2018, when I was scratching my head on how I could contribute, how my experience could really help things, software quality ended up being the way that I felt I could add the most. So the next thing is testing. Now, honestly, testing is something that I've looked at now 60 odd protocols, and virtually always people put a tremendous amount of effort into the tests, and you can see it. And you know that they're running the tests regularly as they're developing the software. Then they deploy the software onto the mainnet, and there is not a single piece of documentation that says whether or not the test passed. I mean, what is up, guys? If you consider the effort you've done in developing and using the tests, writing a simple report when you deploy, which is not very often, is not too much to ask. And when a third party like me comes in and looks, it is a tremendous assistance. When I talk to the auditors that have been supporting me, one of the things that they said is don't try and run the tests yourself from the GitHub. It's a rabbit hole. There's always some little detail. So a report really helps. So what should be in a report? Well, the types of tests and the number of tests. We have this many unit tests. We have this many system tests. Describe what the system tests do. These tests are normal operation. These tests are abnormal operation, things like that. Describe the tools that you used. I use Slither. I use Mithril. I use Mythex. Say it and give it a little bit. These are all just small areas. Now, coverage. I would say 25% of the protocols that we review have coveralls. And that, I understand, that's a developer's decision, but at least with coveralls, we have a coverage report. The number of times where you sit back and you're looking at the scripts and the tests and you go, I'm sure these guys have got great coverage, but I have absolutely no evidence of it. So coverage gained, and not just coverage gained. Now going into my aerospace rules, why are some lines missed? Did you take the time to look at the lines that you didn't get the coverage and figure out, what the reason is? Now, there are perfectly valid test reasons why some code can't be gained. Give a little indication of that. I mean, dead code is obviously something that is very strong, because when you consider how much you have to pay to put code onto the blockchain, getting rid of dead code is something that really pays you, which we don't have in aerospace. Something else, if you used or will you continue to use a testnet, put a paragraph on there saying what the testnet was, what it did, and some references. If you sat back and looked at your protocol and looked at similar protocols and said, I saw a hack on, say, Harvest, I know what happened, and we've done these subtle things, which means that similar hack won't happen. A coverage test is the test report is a great place to say that type of stuff. So my main point is, please write test reports. And I might add, even if your protocol's already deployed, you can put a test report on afterwards also. So audits. Audits are obviously a big part of our review. But if you think about it, audits are technical reports commissioned by and for the protocol. The audience of the report is the developers of the protocol, not the general public using the reports. But audits are the main badge of quality for a protocol. On DeFi Pulse, they have a list of the audits that are in there. They've started to add that the audits are the main badge of quality right now. This is something that we started in the ICO days, and it's just a habit that we've retained. So as I was writing this presentation, which is actually the first presentation I've done, the epiphany came to me that we hope that a rating like DeFi Safeties will replace audits as badges of safety. So in this case, our reports are written with the intention of being read by the users of DeFi. We are independent. We're not paid by the developers when we do it, which of course is not the case with the auditors. And so effectively, our reviews, or reviews like ours, are designed to be a badge of quality that is better and more mature than simply saying it's been audited. So what do we look for when we review an audit? Well, one, when was the audit done with respect to when the code was deployed? Obviously, you get more points if the audit is done before the deployment, but you still get points even if it's done after. Next, you look at the scope, the duration, the complexity. And does the audit report fit for the protocol? If you have a complex financial instrument that will be interfacing with a dozen other instruments, and the audit report checks for math errors and basic reentrancy, they've missed a lot of elements that in a complex DeFi protocol should have. We look at the quality of the audit report. Is the details in there? Does it explain, even if there's virtually no findings, does it say, we ran these tests, we went through this process, and give some evidence that you can see that definitely these guys did look at it? We look at the quality of the auditor. There are good auditors and there are bad auditors. I would say 3 of the 60 odd audits that we've seen are pure audits that were just commissioned to say we passed. And generally the biggest immediate red flag is if you look at an audit report and it has a great big passed on it, that automatically starts to raise red flags. So there is one auditor that's doing that, but they do great audit reports. So that's not always. Finally, we look at the findings, the severity, are things resolved? And all of that we put into a score, which is obviously a very big part of the complete DeFi safety score. So that goes through the 4 main parts of transparency that we look for and that we score. And one thing that I didn't say but should be clear, transparency is saying it to the world. So often, like after we do a report, we'll send it confidentially to the developers, mostly saying, did we miss anything? Is there anything you disagree with? And we have a discussion there. Them telling us, oh, our audit is over here. You don't get scored for the audit until the audit is there publicly. So we don't, in a sense, score the process quality steps. We score the transparency of the process quality steps. Because as I said, the biggest advantage that DeFi has is our transparency, how much we show what we're doing to the world. So going back to process quality, I mean, if you look at the definition, especially for manufacturing, it's monitoring and improving a defined process to improve efficiency. We're not at that level. What we're trying to do now is to develop rules for consistent deliverables that the public can see on a protocol that instills trust on a decentralized network. And implicitly with that, we're trying to develop a standard for the public information set that protocol developers can look at and say, this is what I've got to see. Now, clearly, transparency is, in a sense, a crutch for doing the incentivizing to do the steps of quality, but it's also immensely important. So just sort of a philosophical endpoint, DeFi is speaking to the world, small voice, but it's getting louder. Among many other things, the world expects formal quality, and it should be in a language that they understand. Now, we're super young now, and not many people are looking at us, so we have the opportunity to define how we're going to talk quality to the world. And when they start seeing that we have a process and it's consistent, it's public, it's quantitative, it's auditable, they're just going to accept it. So our effort now and what we're trying to do is to bring up quality standards that people work on so that this one aspect is something that we agree on. And then finally, once we've got a quality language that as a group, as an industry, everybody agrees on, and I might add, at the moment, we wrote our own process because there isn't one and there isn't a public group to develop it. And in fact, in 2018, when the ETH security was just starting, and I started Secure ETH, which was a product of ETHDenver 2018, we tried to get working groups together, and it was just too early. The industry wasn't ready. I'm not sure if it's ready now. We're definitely closer. So eventually, the quality process of the rules, they should be public standards that are sort of developed by industry, not by a single organization. So once we've got a quality language like that, we iterate it, we improve it, we bring it, keep it up to the technology. We're up to the 6th iteration of our process. We're doing the work for version 7 in the background, and that'll be coming up in the next couple of months. So this is basically it. For us, what we're trying to do is to bring a language of quality into the DeFi space and with that a little bit to the entire Ethereum space. And if as our funding improves, we're going to start doing a dApp safety, which would be the same thing on all the other types of dApps. So that's pretty much what I've got. Any questions?
Yeah, Rex, it doesn't look like we have questions, but definitely inspiring people with your talk.
Thanks much.